All that year the animals worked like slaves, but they were happy in their work. They grudged no effort or sacrifice, well aware that everything that they did was for the benefit of themselves and those of their kind who had come after them, not for an ideal pack of thieving human beings. Throughout the spring and summer, they announced a 60-hour week. In August, Napoleon announced that there would be work on Sunday afternoons as well. This work was strictly voluntary, but any animal who absented himself from it would have his rations reduced by half.
That ain't voluntary, that's forcing, jerk.
Even so, it was found necessary to leave certain tasks undone. The harvest was a little less successful than the previous year, and the 2 fields which have been sown with roots in the early summer were not sown because the plowing had not been completed early enough. It was enough to foresee that the coming winter would be a hard one. The windmill presented unexpected difficulties. There was a good quarry of limestone on the farm, plenty of sand and cement found in one of the outhouses, and so all the materials for building were at hand. But the problem the animals could not foresaw was how to break up the stone into pieces of a suitable size. There seemed to be no way doing this exception of the picks and crowbars, which no animal can use because no animal could stand on his hind legs. After weeks of vain effort, it did the right idea occur to somebody, namely to illustrate the force of gravity. The 2 huge boulders, far too big to be used, were there, and were lying all over in the bed of the quarry. The animals lashed ropes around these. Then altogether, cows, horses, sheep, any animal who could lay the rope, even pigs sometimes joined in at these crucial moments. They dragged them with desperate slowness up the slope to the top of the quarry, where they were toppled over the edge to shatter to pieces below. Transporting the stone once it was broken was pretty simple. The horses carry it off in cartloads. The sheep dragged single blocks. Even Muriel and Benjamin yoked themselves into the old cart they did share. By late summer, a sufficient store of stone had been accumulated. Then the building began, under a superintendence of the pigs. But it was a slow and laborious process. Frequently, it took a whole day of exhausting effort to drag a single boulder to the top of the quarry, and sometimes, when it was pushed over the edge, it failed to break. Nothing could have been achieved without Boxer, whose strength seemed to equal all the rest of the animals put together. When the boulder began to slip, the animals cried out in despair, finding themselves dragged on the hill. It was always Boxer who strained himself against the rope and brought the boulder to the top. To see him toiling up the slope inch by inch, his breath coming fast, the tips of his hoof clawing at the ground, and his great sides matted with sweat, filled everyone with admiration. Clover warned him sometimes to be careful not to overstrain himself, but Boxer would never listen to her. His 2 slogans, "I will work harder" and "Napoleon is always right," seemed to him a significant answer to all problems. He had made arrangements with to call him 3/4 of an hour earlier in the morning instead of half an hour. And in his spare moments, which there were not many nowadays, he would go along the quarry and collect the load of broken straw and drag it down to the side of the windmill unassisted. The animals were not badly off as they fought that summer, in spite of the hardness of their work. If they had no more food than they had in Jones's day, but at least they did not have less. The advantage of having to feed themselves and not having support of 5 extravagant human beings as well is so great, it would have taken a lot of failures to outweigh it. In many ways, the animals' method of doing things was more effective and saved labor, such as weeding, for instance, could be done that was impossible to human beings. And again, no animals stole it. It was unnecessary to fence off a pasture to an unarable land, which saved a lot of labor on the upkeep of hedges and gates. Nevertheless, the summer wore on, and various unforeseen shortages began to make themselves felt. The need for paraffin oil, nails, string, dog biscuits, iron for the horseshoes, none of which could be produced on the farm. Later, there would also be a need for seeds, artificial manures, besides various tools, and finally the machinery for the windmill. How these were to procure, no one was able to imagine. One Sunday afternoon, when the animals assembled to receive their orders, Napoleon announced that he decided upon a new policy. From onwards, animal farmers would engage in trade with the neighboring farms, not, of course, any commercial purposes, but simply in order to obtain certain materials which were urgently necessary. The needs of the windmill must override everything else, he said. He was therefore making arrangements to sell a stack of hay and part of the current year's wheat crop. And later on, if more money were needed, it would be made up by sale of eggs, for which was always on the market in Willingdon. The hens, Napoleon said, should welcome this sacrifice as their own special contribute towards the building of the windmill. Once again, the animals were conscious of a vague of uneasiness. Never to have any dealings with human beings, never to engage in trade, never to make use of money, had not been among the earliest resolutions passed at the first meeting after Jones was expelled.
It originally was. Yeah, but Napoleon's a jerk.
All the animals remembered passing such resolutions, or at least they thought they had remembered it. The 4 young pigs who had protested when Napoleon above the meetings raised their voices timidly, but they were promptly silenced by the tremendous growling from the dogs. Then, as usual, the sheep broke into the 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and the momentary awkwardness moved over. Finally, Napoleon raised his trotter for silence and announced that he would make all the arrangements.